All right, can everybody hear me all right? Good morning. I'd just like to start off by saying, I'm really happy to be here. Since I'm an undergraduate student, I've heard that's a little bit rare from just the few days I've been here, so I'm really excited to be here talking to everybody. So basically, starting with our presentation here, we sort of looked at this question: must history students write in order to learn historical thinking skills? And among sort of the college professor community, it really seems as though students do need to write in order to learn history. Last fall, the AHA Members Forum had a very lively online conversation about sort of the merits of using writing as a tool in our history classrooms. It all started when a high school history department chair came in and asked sort of the members forum, do you still do writing in college courses? Because in his experience, high school teachers are telling him the history essay is dead. They're not using it. However, in the members forum, every single professor who responded said that college writing is vitally important in their classrooms. Every single person said that you need to have it. And one person even went so far as to say that writing is history. And so I'd say that this is a belief that's shared by the faculty at Augustana College. Writing is a central component to all of our classes here, even at the introductory level. Much to the chagrin of some of my friends, Dr. Calder sometimes requires people to write as much as an essay a week. So when we're on trimesters, that's 10 essays over the course of the whole term, plus maybe even the final exam. So basically, but Dr. Calder started to notice a troubling trend, which he wrote about in his 2006 Uncoverage study. He, in order to measure students' gains in historical thinking skills, he started using the Thinking Aloud protocol to sort of like see where students were at the beginning of the course and at the end of the course. And what he found is that students' grades in the course had absolutely zero correlation to what they were getting in his actual course in terms of a letter grade. So the A students were performing worse than most of the C students in the class, and they even got outperformed by someone who actually failed the class in terms of historical thinking skills. So this sort of begged the question, do students need to write in order to learn history? And he just really couldn't shake this idea that is writing effective teaching, or is it just sort of an outdated hazing ritual that unfairly discriminates against students with little prior training in how to write? And so the AHA Forum was notable for the strength of the convictions, but the lack of data. So what Dr. Calder and I wanted to do is we wanted to check out what actually got some data and figure out what was going on here. So at this point, Dr. Calder is going to be walking around and handing out sort of one of the assessments that we use to gauge student knowledge right now. Our research design was fairly simple. Dr. Calder ended up teaching a usually high number of undergraduate courses in the US course in the spring, winter, and fall of 2017 and 2018. And so he was able to teach the course in two different ways. One course was very heavy on the writing, and one course had absolutely no writing at all. But other than that, all of the in-class methods, formats, lectures, exercises, everything was the same except for those history and writing. So we sought to answer the question that I just had projected on the board up there before. And so we needed a valid and reliable way to measure these historical thinking skills, so we used the Historical Thinking Assessment, or HAT, from the Stanford History Education Group that all of you are receiving right now. So I myself have actually used this in my student teaching classroom as well, so this is something that can work in the high school environment as well. Dr. Calder has used it in his classes. And so each HAT assesses students' ability at one or more core heuristic of historical thinking. So something like the relationship between claim and evidence, how time and place influence events, things like that. And basically there are three different categories that we used to grade. You have proficient, which is the highest category that shows they're really able to use the thinking skill. This is an example of the rubric that we have for this one up here. Emergent is someone who basically has some idea of what's going on, but they haven't quite reached that level of mastery. So proficient is mastery, emergent is sort of, you're getting there, but you're not quite there. And then we come to basic. That's basically what Dr. Calder and I like to call it swing and a miss. Just like whiffing, they completely missed the ball there. So while we were working, Dr. Calder and I used that three-point rubric in terms of the HAT tasks. And our three skills that we measured were sourcing, corroboration, and contextualization. And then in terms of, so these are some of the responses that we were looking at here. This first student, I'd like to, so they're basically saying that the painting shows the Pilgrims and the Indians living together, shows the relationship was civil and friendly, and so by looking at this painting, we can figure out what the relationship was. And so I'd like to invite someone in the audience, what level do you think this response comes up from, based off the head that you have there? Basic. Is it basic? That would be correct, yeah, it's basic, because the main idea of this particular hat that all of you have is that they want them to basically realize this idea that this is a painting that was made hundreds of years after the first Thanksgiving, and so it's not really going to be a very accurate idea. So if a student says, oh yeah, this is completely accurate, they've got a basic response. This is another example of a basic response. Basically, it hits along similar lines of reasoning as before. This is an example of a proficient response. It basically says this person disagrees that it would help historians understand it. So they got the basic idea, but when you look at what they're actually saying, they're just kind of talking about the artist's intention. So they're on the right track, but they're not quite there yet. That one's an example of emergent. And then this one, I believe, would be an example of proficient here. So looking at the date, this person nails it. They say it was painted over 300 years after the first Thanksgiving, so they found exactly what we were looking for there. All right, but then transitioning back to our results, looking at the different hats that we had, we found that there was absolutely no support for the idea that teaching writing in the history classrooms helped with this skill of corroboration. So across all three of the different assessments that we used, you can see that the students who were in that proficient range, so who actually understood what was going on, it went down by about 5%. So that's not a lot, but it didn't help students get up into that greater range. The emergent category stayed about the same, and then we had a few people slip back into the basic range. So in terms of corroboration, the writing really didn't help that much at all. Moving on to contextualization, we're seeing something that's pretty similar. The emergent stays about the same. They take a slight step back from proficient, become slightly more basic. So in terms of corroboration and contextualization, the writing actually seems to have made students do worse on those historical thinking skills. There's a little bit of hope, though, if you're fond of using writing. When we came to learning about sourcing, that we saw a significant gain in the number of students who became proficient. But one thing that I would like to point out here is that when you're look at that basic slice of the pie there. The basic slice of the pie stays about the same. And so what Dr. Calder and I concluded from looking at this data is that the sourcing, the writing, it helps students who are in that emergent category move up to proficient. So students who are maybe at the B or C level, it helps move them up into that A. But for the students who are really floundering, low C, D, maybe even failing, the writing doesn't do them any good regardless of the historical thinking skill. And so our finding really runs counter to what historians believe is important for the relationship between writing and history. And I think surely there should be some skepticism about our findings, and we would encourage anybody, if you wanted to run this trial again, to check it out and see what all of you have found. But it looks like that we really shouldn't have writing as a staple. And we tend to agree with David Pace, and that it's time to really think in a new, fresh way about what our effective pedagogical methods are for teaching in a history course. So writing should not be history. And it seems though maybe for some groups, students who might be a little bit more advanced, the writing does give them some help. But for most of your undergraduate students, especially if they're in an undergraduate an introductory course, it really isn't going to help them much. And so basically, but one thing that I personally would like to caution all of you here against is it's not that students are unable to think and sort of write a long form essay. They're not losing that abilities. That's something that I saw when I looked at the members forum. They're sort of thinking, oh, kids these days, they really can't think in anything more than 140 character tweets. I would say that's not the case. I know a lot of people who write fantastic long form essays, but all those people have one thing in common, and that's they've been taught how to write longer. And not all students come from that same privileged background. So basically, I'd like to conclude by saying, writing isn't as central to history teaching as we think that it is. And so if you want to include that into your classrooms, you should make sure that you take some time to teach writing skills in the way that you want them so that you're allowing your students to succeed.